Good afternoon, and welcome to the CLA COVID livestream series. We hope that you, your families, friends, and communities are staying safe and healthy. Our mission in these is to help educate you about the new programs and the new world that we are adapting to as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. We've covered many legislative changes and program updates as a result of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act and the CARES Act in the past live streams. We've talked through some of how the legislative changes are impacting our tax credits, our HR obligations, this Paycheck Protection Program, and other lending and tax-related updates. We'll continue to navigate those programs and any future legislation later this week and into next. Today, we're talking about a very important issue that impacts all areas of the personal and professional world, cybersecurity. Today, we will discuss best practices for changing workplace, protecting your information as you apply for lending options and receive the stimulus benefits, and raise awareness to any of the latest scams that might be impacting you or your employees during this time. As a housekeeping item, like in all live streams, please click the links in the dialog box below us to submit questions, and please feel free to contact us either during or after the session at claconnect.com. We will also try to be answering questions as they come in during the sessions as well, so please be aware of that and keep an eye out for your participation. In the face of COVID-19, employers around the world are being challenged to design new ways to allow their employees to remain productive while working from home. We've seen many examples of how the organizations have struggled to implement widespread work from home initiatives, including the technological component. As your organization adapts to the new normal, we recommend that you carefully consider the cybersecurity controls that you have in place and around the remote work. Our resource today coming in for the conversation is Randy Romas. Randy is the managing principal for cybersecurity consulting team at CLA. He leads a team of technology and industry specialists providing IT audits and security assessments for clients in a wide range of industries and diverse operating environments, and he has provided independent security assessments and IT audits. He is responsible for the continuing development of the open source Unix and Windows application used in all of the security audits, and he leads the firm's PCI QSA audit practice. He is a certified information systems security professional, a certified in risk and information system controls professional, a certified information systems auditor, a PCI quality security assessor, and a Microsoft certified professional. That's a lot. Welcome, Randy, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jen. All those acronyms just mean I'm good at taking tests.
Certainly better than I am at even saying them all. So thank you so much for bringing your expertise today. I think we'll have quite a bit of good information that comes from this conversation. So I'd like to jump right into it and ask you about what's happening now that we've gone from this 15% remote workforce to instances of greater than 80% remote workforce in this environment. What are some of the best ways to do this, and what kind of remote access is the most acceptable and secure as our clients and employers start transitioning to this model?
Sure, everybody's kind of had their world turned upside down in a number of different ways. We all had routines for going to work, going to the office, how we do things, and you know, our new situation is everybody stays home. So we have to take all of our stuff that we did, we got to do it in a different environment now. So really, we're going to kind of zero in on three things, two different ways to say it. And we talk about people, rules, and tools. How are we going to make sure our people, rules, and tools work together to continue to, you know, accomplish our mission, to serve our customers and our members, to take care of our people? We turn that around a little bit. We'll kind of hit this in three components. Number one, we want to talk about just the idea or the concept of remote access. You know, CLA, we were fortunate. We already had a largely mobile remote workforce. Many organizations, everybody's normally sitting in the office. So we had to figure out, how do we get them doing the same thing, working from home. So remote access, we're going to look at a variety of different applications or platforms. How do we extend our business processes, access to the important systems and data out to their house? We had many things that were already in place, traditional remote access systems like a VPN, a virtual private network, or remote email like Outlook Web Access. Some places had applications or remote desktop applications. So I would sit at home, I would fire up on my computer a Citrix desktop or an Outlook Web Access, and I could do all or most of my work that way. So for the organizations that weren't used to that, now we have to extend that capability out to the employees sitting at home. If we didn't already have those, then they would need to figure out ways to implement those in a rather quick manner, right? So the easiest of all those is Outlook Web Access. If a client had Exchange as their email platform, then the Outlook Web Access functionality is already there. It might need to be turned on. There might be some additional licensing requirements. We licensed it for people to use at a desktop in the office, but to project it out to Outlook Web Access, there might be some additional licensing. The other things that we find very frequently in short order notice are things like applications like Go to My PC. So basically that's a system where we install Go to My PC on the desktop in the office, and we turn it on so that when we're sitting at home, we can remote into that system. So, you answered you asked a key question. What's the best one? Well, they all do similar things. Different types of VPNs all do VPN. Different types of remote desktop do different types of remote desktop. So the best one for any given organization, number one, is going to be, do you already have one? That's the one you want to stick with. You don't want to add something new because we're adding layers of complexity. If the one you have is scalable out, from the 15% you were used to the now 85%, that's the best one. The second part of how do we do it securely is really breaking down and understanding what are the security controls it has natively, and then have we turned them on and are we managing them? As we go through that, we want to think then and apply it. How are we going to do this? Who needs it? And where are they going to do it from?
Well, and I think that really leads to something that we probably need to talk about as well as part of this, which are the device considerations. As you talk about all these platforms, are there certain hardware or devices, technology that are okay to use? And, how does that work with all of this?
Sure. So we've got the application accessible to the outside. Now, how do we interact with it, right? So the devices can take on a wide variety of formats. Again, what do we already use? And do we need to add anything to implement that? So very traditionally, laptops and tablets or mobile devices, those tend to be the bulk of how we've already enabled remote access. In some instances, we've seen clients who are very creative, maybe a little further thinking ahead than others. I know of one instance where client literally ran around to all the Best Buys in a major metro, and they bought as many of the laptops as they could. They literally bought 5 here and 10 there and 20 here. They ran around and bought 100 laptops over a weekend, right? And so not only did they get laptops, but then they have to provision and configure them to support their internal standards. The other thing we see a lot of is, hey, we couldn't go out and get all those, so we're going to allow the employees, our team members, our family members, we're going to allow them to use their home computing devices to access our corporate resources. Is that okay? Well, the classic consultant's answer there is it depends. It depends on what. We go back to the how, who, where, what, and when. If Sally's going to work from home on her home computer, we really need to start applying some thought behind, well, what does she need access to? What systems? What kind of data? And then we need to do some risk evaluation. Say, is that okay from a home, personally owned PC? Maybe it is. Maybe in that level of access that she needs, she really only needs email. Well, Outlook web access from a home PC is largely okay. There are parameters we can put up around that to very appropriately manage the risk. However, if she's doing payroll and she needs direct access into the finance system to build ACH payroll files and submit payroll, then working from a home computer that she personally owns, maybe that isn't okay. There aren't enough other mitigating controls that we're comfortable with. And with home, personally owned PCs, we have to give some thought to maybe that PC's already been compromised. Maybe it has malware on it. Maybe the other person at home that uses that PC, the teenager running around in the background, who knows what they've downloaded onto that computer. So there's got to be some risk evaluation of, what does that system need access to? Be comfortable with the mechanism to get there. In some instances, we've seen and we've recommended to clients that they take the desktop PC in the office, send it home. It's already pre-configured. You already know what the security controls are. It has the corporate standards for antivirus and other controls. Then you equip it with the VPN access, the software we talked about before. And now you have a corporate managed secured device access into the corporate applications at an appropriate kind of risk mitigation level. The last thing that you need to do there then is consider that we've basically taken this internal PC, which used to sit inside our physical facility behind our firewall, and we've put it out in somebody's home. So basically, we've just extended our internal corporate network out to a home environment. So there are some other controls we want to think about in terms of how do we further mitigate this now expanded network. One of the things we talk about is a technical term here, IP address filtering. One of the things we've talked a lot about internally is most of our clients should be able to determine, hey, we've got 30 people working remotely. They're not moving around now. Sally's always coming from here. Tom's always coming from here. Joe's coming from here. So we know what their IP addresses are. We can apply filtering in our firewall, in our VPN, in our applications to effectively whitelist those. A whitelist is to say these devices, these IP addresses, if they try to connect, we allow that. Anything else is blocked. So if you're not coming from a pre-authorized or whitelisted location, then we're going to block it. So we've got the application, whether it's the Outlook web access or the VPN. We've got the devices in the home. And then we look at some of these additional controls to mitigate the risk. IP filtering, sometimes it's called geofencing. Geofencing means that we can determine that this IP address is coming from Chicago. Chicago is okay. This IP address coming from Nigeria, well, we don't have anybody working from Nigeria right now. We don't need to allow that.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does. So as we're looking at all of that, do we need to start thinking about like different corporate policy considerations? I mean, the two thoughts I have as you're talking about this is one, how do we get help desk support, right? If we've got people using their home computers or something, coming from an office there. And then the second thing, it sounds like, is like a corporate policy consideration. What do we have to be thinking about and considering in terms of, as an employer, newer updated policies and procedures, and then as employees, what we have to agree to use these systems to keep them safe?
Sure. I'm gonna I'm going to go, why do we want to even throw policies in here? I'm going to go back to my earliest statement. People, rules, and tools. The rules are how we're going to define how we expect to operate business, how we're going to interact with our employees, with our customers, members, how we're going to interact with our business and service providers and partners. What do we expect to occur? So when we talk about the rules, the policies, we're literally turning our operations upside down. At some point, some of those policies need to be revisited because we've just drastically changed how we operate, or we're operating the same, but in a really different place, in a different manner. And so this is managing risk. Do we want to change some of these policies? The other thing is, as we have pushed all these people to working from home, we really should revisit what's usually referred to as an acceptable use policy. That's the statement that all the employees review and agree to say, this is how I'm going to use this computer. This is how I'm going to use my time, right? So at some point, without too much delay, we should revisit those. But the first two areas probably need more attention up front, right? How are we going to continue business with our applications when they're all at home? Do they have the right hardware and devices to do that?
Well, and then coming in on that, it looks like we had a couple questions coming in from the audience, one of which was, when they're doing that, do you feel like using a Citrix receiver to log in from a home PC, then RDP from that session to an office PC is a secure method of doing the work?
Sure. So define a couple terms there real quick. Citrix receiver is an application that allows you to use Citrix to remote in on what I referred to earlier as a remote desktop. And Citrix receiver can do it two ways. I can open up Citrix receiver and I can get access just to an application or applications, or I can get access to a full desktop. So Citrix receiver is an excellent remote access desktop protocol. It's flexible and scalable and highly securable. Typically what we want to see when we implement that is some form of additional what we call two-factor or multi-factor authentication. In traditional authentication, there's three factors: something I know, username, password, account number. Something I am, biometric, so an eye scan, a thumbprint, voice recognition, or something I have like a token that I plug in. In two-factor or multi-factor, we're relying on at least two of those. So username and password, followed by my favorite color, followed by my first car. That's still single factor. It's something I know, something I know, something I know. So what we want to see is username and password, submit, and then the two-factor piece. Again, it could be any of those. It could also be a code that we generate from an authentication app, something separate. Once that Citrix is up and running, RDPing into the internal system is perfectly acceptable. Okay.
The next question that we had coming in from Tammy was, what is your opinion of using TeamViewer as part of this?
TeamViewer is probably, it's analogous to Citrix. The difference is when we're using Citrix, usually all the application infrastructure is in-house. So you have Citrix servers in-house. You probably have a Citrix receiver server in your DMZ, and externally you connect to your Citrix server and then you go inside. With TeamViewer, effectively what you've done is you put a TeamViewer client on an internal PC. So a desktop or a server. And then you've got a TeamViewer client on your home PC, and TeamViewer is a cloud service. So my TeamViewer client on my home PC is going to connect to TeamViewer's cloud system. And then they're going to redirect me to the internal system. So TeamViewer, like GoToMyPC, like a lot of these others, it can be configured securely. But again, you have to know what the security parameters are. You have to make sure they line up with your business security needs. And then you have to turn them on and tune them appropriately. So Should Sally be able to log into TeamViewer from Kazakhstan, from Australia? No, she's not there. She doesn't need to be there.
Okay.
So if we don't put those control layers in there, then no, it's not okay.
Okay.
But if we think through those control needs and we put the right control layers in the TeamViewer, then her coming in from her client is okay.
Okay. And I think that really helps answer the question. And, it's funny as we're having this conversation, I mean, all of this about security, I think the next piece of this that we really need to focus on, I know people are really concerned with it, are the fraud considerations. So as we're looking at some of these things, have we seen any new types of cyber fraud as a result of the shift to remote work and the new financial assistance programs?
Have we seen any new fraud? Well, there's a joking statement that there's nothing new under the sun, right? So the answer to that is yes and no. In terms of new fraud, the new piece is the new context or the new set of situations we're dealing with. How they're executing it is the old stuff, right? So we've got two major new programs out there that are making all kinds of money available. I'm going to get this quote a little bit wrong, but it sounds better, right? They asked Jesse James in the 1800s, why do you rob the banks? That's where the money is. Where's the money now? The money's in payroll protection program, or no, get that right, paycheck protection programs and the enhanced economic, I forget the other two words. I'm a technology guy, so you saw those acronyms on my name. I can't keep them all straight. So with the paycheck protection program, we've seen the beginnings of maybe two different scenarios, right? Mm-hmm. The first is, something our financial institutions have to watch out for. Somebody walks in off the street and says, I'm a small business owner. Here's all the stuff that I know I need to submit to get my paycheck protection loan. The risk really is twofold there. Most of the financial institutions we work with, if not all, they're only offering this to their existing, already in place business clients. That's the best way for them to protect themselves from this. There is some anecdotal secondhand evidence. There are some financial institutions that are offering these to people who are not already existing clients. That runs the risk of somebody showing up, claiming to be they're somebody they're not, and leaving with a lot of money. The other direction is for all of our small business owners out there, need to be very careful of somebody reaching out and soliciting to broker this process for you. Hi, we are the Small Business Community Association. We're trying to help all the small businesses in Minneapolis, and we'll help you get your paycheck protection loan. And so that unsolicited contact can be used by a fraudster to get the small business to give up their information to broker this. And in fact, the fraudster then takes that information, submits it, and gets the payment, but they just take off with it. Those are really the two most likely scenarios. How they're going to come to you is like all the other stuff we've seen before, the wide variety of phishing messages. So you get an email. It looks like it comes from somebody legitimate. It looks like it comes from somebody you know, but it doesn't. It comes from the fraudster. They've done their homework. They know what the requirements are to get all the information for the paycheck protection program. So they look organized and legitimate. The same thing, we've seen a few instances of this coming in as a text message. Hey, click here, follow this link, see the website, fill out your stuff, collect your stimulus package. Mm-hmm. We've seen phone calls. It's funny, every day at 3:30, I get a phone call, right? I'm on a list. Somebody's trying to get me to pick up and say yes. So it's a new scenario and a new context to go after a new money stream using many of the old techniques: phishing, phone calls, text messages.
Do we have guidance
The other,
I'm sorry.
go
Do we
ahead.
have guidance about what to do? Like if you suspect that's happened to you, is there something where people can turn or to report it to the FBI or the IRS? Is there protocol for that or
Well,
best practice?
that's tough. If you suspect it happened, really there's 2 or 3 places you can notify. If you suspect you got tricked into doing this with a particular bank, reach out to that bank directly. So
Okay.
contact them directly, figure out if it was them or not. If it wasn't, give them the information, and then you can consider filing a complaint with your local law enforcement or the FBI. The FBI will take the information in, probably. They probably won't do anything with it because the dollar threshold's got to be pretty darn high for them to get involved. The other thing to do in that instance is we've got some resources on our website for, what do you do if you think you've been a victim of identity theft? And effectively, this is going to be a form of identity theft, whether it's you individually or your business. The other scenario I wanted to touch on real quickly is, there's a large swath of the population that's going to get an economic stimulus check. And there's going to be all kinds of fraud scenarios around that. Click here to fill in the information to get it. That's never the way it's going to work. The IRS is not going to solicit anybody to go to a website to fill out a form to send this stuff unsolicited. And so the rule of thumb is if you get a contact like this, take some information down, but don't do anything. Hang up the phone, get rid of the email, go right to the proper website. So the IRS website, your bank's website, call them directly, and you reach out to them, not just take this unsolicited contact from somebody you don't know who's on the other side.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Could any of this be covered in maybe some different acceptable use policies that would fit today's circumstances? I know Pat in the chat from the YouTube is asking, are there some sample acceptable use policies that people can find to fit today's circumstances? And is also saying, in addition to computer use and how I use my time, can these policies or should these policies include confidential documents and other information?
The policies, acceptable use policies, could and potentially should speak to confidential documents and confidential information. Are there templates out there? Yeah, there's lots. Google's your friend and your enemy. If you have a cybersecurity auditing firm that you partner with, they often have samples that they share with clients. The other thing I wanted to touch on, maybe within the acceptable use, but also as a broader statement, is as we have moved everybody from in-house to working from home remotely, communication is going to become a challenge, different sets of challenges. And so it's really important to what I call stop and think. 2 minutes of inconvenience. When you get a request coming in, a voicemail, a text message, an email, you can't look over the cube and see if that was really Sally or Tom. You have to stop and think and scrutinize the request. You got to figure out, is this normal? And stop and think and ask, is this something I should be verifying before I just take action on it? Whether it's fill in the form to get my stimulus or complete the information to allow somebody to broker my paycheck loan, or respond to this message and send all the W-2 forms because it's tax time. We need to stop and think and take on that 2 minutes inconvenience, and not let this new situation pressure us into act quickly without thinking.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We are definitely getting to the close of our time here. So, Randy, I really want to thank you for your information and a conversation today around this very important topic. I'd like to thank our experts who have been joining in the chat and answering questions as they're coming in, and obviously to our audience for your participation and good questions. To the extent that we didn't respond to something that you have out there and you want to learn more, please do reach out to us at claconnect.com in the Contact Us button or in any of the links in the dialog box, and we'll be happy to either answer your question immediately or direct you to the right person who can help you. This Thursday, we will have Jack and Todd and Leslie back to, again, go through some of the newer provisions, new regulations, and some frequently asked questions that have come as a result of the progression of this Paycheck Protection Program. In the meantime, please, again, contact us with any questions. Please stay safe and healthy, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.